Ready? Time for another Transit Police Board meeting. So before we get started, Metro Vancouver Transit Police and the Police Board respects the Indigenous nations within Metro Vancouver and acknowledges all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their continued resilience, sustainable stewardship, and as active members of the community for generations to come. We recognize that working with and managing the transportation system, we have a role to play in supporting reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Great. Welcome, everyone. Nice to see you all. Let's start with consent agenda. So, do we have anything to pull from consent?
John, please.
You said? Okay. Anything else to pull? Bill, did you have anything? Yeah? Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Anything else to pull from consent? All good? All right, can I get a motion to approve consent without E&S?
So moved.
Thank you. All right, let's talk about fees. Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Marnie. Just had a question about, let's see if I can get down to that page here. There's a graph on page 20 that shows total complaints for 2024 under chart 1. And it shows total complaints for 2024 as 20 under total public trust complaints and 18 under admissible complaints. And then it shows what I believe to be 2024 Q1 to Q3 results. And the next element of the graph, second from the right, where total public trust complaints were 9 and total admissible complaints were 7 for the first 3 quarters. And I was thinking that looks unusual to have the number of complaints double in the last quarter. Am I misreading that, or was there something missed there?
So basically what happens with the, quite a delay lately with the Complaints Commission in terms of their time as they're determining the admissibility of complaints. We're having a lot of things that maybe wait 6-8 months as a, what they call a registered complaint, or we'll buy them. There's quite a delay there. If you look at some of those complaints, they're from months previous. They just finally.
So is it fair to say that they tend to try to clean up their the number of complaints they've received and provide notice late in the year, then typically before the year is out?
Yeah, we find that there's different rushes, like just before summer. You know, once Christmas, right around before year end, you'll see a bunch of things get cleared, and then there'll be a delay, and then we'll find in the spring into the 4 or 5 months. All of a sudden they'll get cleaned up, and then it'll be industries, right, businesses. It's not much activity in the summer. It slows down, and then kids all go back to school, go back full time, and all of a sudden, right off
They'll start
September, October, another run.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
And F.
Just on the heels of the report, this is the compliments report, and I just always like us as the board in public session to recognize some of the things that are being said about the organization, the members, and so on, given the fact that so often you hear about some of the issues that are maybe arising in a negative way. So when somebody goes, takes the time to get in touch with transit police and compliments either specific officers or the organization as a whole, I think we need to think about that, especially given what we do as an organization around public safety tied to transit. And the real words here are so important where people feel safe. We do a lot of the surveys and everything else, but this is kind of the real world stuff. You can imagine there's a lot more that would come like this, but these people have gone out of their way to compliment the organization, and so to the chief and all the team. It's good to see. I think that's the kind of stuff that we continue to need to hear, and the public needs to know, and certainly our friends in TransLink need to see, given the fact that we talk about public safety so often, and that idea that there's support for people it was quite varied in terms
It was,
of some of the
yeah.
compliments, everything from someone who was feeling dizzy, an older person, that got some help, right down to somebody that, and the one in here in particular was Denny's and the restaurant, and that sort of thing, which was quite moving. So
Yeah.
kudos to the organization.
Yeah, and thank you for those comments. You know, the things that our members are doing on the front line are reflected in that report, investigatively advancing things. Also compliments from TransLink, from our enterprise partners for the work being done, and government as well, which, you know, thoughtfully recognizing, you know, governance and the work being done at Transit Police.
Thanks for that, George. Important. Everyone's favorite report. All right. Can I get a motion to accept C and F, please? Great. Thank you. All right. On to public delegations. Taryn, is there any? All right. Officer reports.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, Board, everyone, and the public watching today. 5 kind of key updates before I'll turn to our deputies of operations and admin support. First and foremost is FIFA. Hard to believe, 201 days, countdown for FIFA. We're continuing to do extensive work preparation with that with our law enforcement partners, and that will continue until the event comes itself. Another important event is the 20th anniversary celebration here for Transit Police, a significant milestone in our organization, with the only specialized police service in Canada, and it's really an opportunity to recognize our founders and the future of our organization as well, along with the contributions of our current members. And those contributions include the board here today in advancing us, so thank you for your work. Of note, Transit Police recently participated in a Canadian Urban Transit Association documentary. It was on Frontline, Keeping Transit Safe, and we were highlighted again as that only specialized police service. Just recognition for Constable Randawa, our mental health liaison officer, who was profiled in that video. We've also recently hosted a couple of police agencies here in Canada to highlight the work we're doing. We had the Toronto Transit Commission visit us in October, as well as welcoming the Calgary Police Service to have a look at our Operations Communications Center. We continue as well to participate in the Lower Mainland Extortion Task Force, and that's you know, important work that we keep apprised with those incidents happening in community, working with community and our law enforcement partners. And finally, we're eagerly awaiting the decision of the Police Services Branch around the Justice Institute of BC and what model they'll be moving forward with, whether it will be enhanced capacity at the JIBC or moving forward with some of the satellite applications from other police agencies. And we expect that announcement to come in the next couple of weeks. So with that update, I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Randy Fincham in Operations, followed by Deputy Bryce Graham, our Administrative Services Division. Randy?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Morning, everybody. Just a couple files to highlight and initiatives to highlight in the Ops Division. So starting in September, we had 2 officers participate in Cops for Cancer, which we participate in every year, supporting pediatric cancer research and Camp Good Times. Our rider raised $40,000 this year to support those initiatives, and we look forward to doing that again next year. And then we have another officer in one of our support vehicles supporting officers keeping them safe on the road, which is great. Acting Inspector Jeff Connor, who's here with us this morning, so just highlighting a project out of his team. So this is Project Fortitude. We do a lot of work in relation to retail theft, and as you move in Black Friday to Christmas, I think everybody needs to realize that they pay roughly 20% more for items based on theft. So the overhead for theft, so we target those individuals using transit to steal items and leave via transit. So Project Fortitude was a project that took place in September, identifying these individuals, finding a location in Burnaby that was finding these items for sale through Facebook Marketplace. And of interest with this one, there was one retailer with 4 locations that actually lost $700,000 in merchandise for this project, so a significant amount of property being stolen. So operations did the project, doing a couple of investigative avenues to follow up, arrest a number of individuals and lay charges, and over $200,000 in stolen property was recovered, all brand new with tags, stolen property. So these are individuals that continue to use transit, and will continue to work with retailers in the season. A lot of enhanced visibility patrols on the offside, so focusing on areas like Commercial and Broadway, waterfront, and then coming off the busy summer season at Denman and Davie. And we're still very fortunate to be utilizing funding through the province to add resources to these areas when they're busy. That's not coming out of our operating budget, that's supported by the province of British Columbia, which is fantastic. Going over to our investigation divisions, this file was a mix between our investigative unit and operations response, and it highlights our interactions with Metrotown Mall, who is a big partner of ours, as well as for RCMP. So in September, we had an unfortunate event where we had a group of individuals involved in what we describe as a knife fight, and there was an unfortunate woman stepping off a train that was victimized in the process. We're in the middle of this, sustained some significant injuries, treated in hospital and attended to. And the 3 individuals fled from that location into the mall and to the surrounding area. So our operations members work very closely with Burnaby RCMP as well as Metrotown Mall Security. And with all those established relationships, we're quite easily, well, I shouldn't say easily, but quickly able to identify where these individuals were, arrest all the individuals involved, charge the individuals involved, recover the weapons, and proceed via charges with our general investigation unit with the investigations. Great work happening there. For our community engagement team, so Staff Sergeant Michelle Hansen, working with her team in 2025, so in this period, 82 enterprise engagements, leader engagements, where our staff are engaging directly with TransLink operating companies in various avenues, community pop-up events, face-to-face events across the region. Michelle's team as well, doing another 95 community-based events with the community engagement team, and then our volunteers over 12 events, so a total of 170 community engagements for that team this quarter, which is nice to see. Great work happening out there. Our Blue Eagles Community Cadet Program, so we have 176 kids in the program right now, so split between Vancouver and Surrey. Events happening throughout the week, and then as well on the odd weekend when we have activities happening with them. Very fortunate, so we've just brought on Reg Smith, a new coordinator. This will be working with Kirk as we transition into the beginning of 2026, and then Reg will be taking over. You've actually met Reg here before. He's actually a big supporter of the board and the work that we do. Reg has been at our board meetings. We had a really good meeting with Michelle and the team yesterday, and Reg bringing him on board. Reg comes to us with a lot of experience working with youth. He comes from the Aboriginal Community Center in Vancouver, so great having him on board and having his expertise and his cultural experience with the kids. And again, looking with our K9 unit, so again, our K9 unit very busy, preparing for FIFA, as the chief mentioned, is coming up very quickly, and looking forward to that happening and lots of training going on in that regard. Our community safety officer program, so we have class 5 coming up in December, so we're going to bring our strength back up to 26 CSOs, which is excellent having them around supporting frontline policing, and the board's been brought up to speed on where we're at with the initiative moving forward as we go through this trial phase and look at the future of that program. And then lastly, I'll finish off with TMET. So the fall for TMET is always a busy season where we work on community safety specific to pedestrians, getting dark earlier, people utilizing transit into the fall months. So our TMET members are out there focusing on pedestrian safety and working on distracted driving into the fall season with our partners. So we'll be out there throughout the fall into Christmas, working on impaired driving and other community safety events. And always bus lanes. So our team members are still out there working the bus lanes, and still one that we get kudos every week. People happy to see them out there. We just got another one yesterday where somebody was patiently waiting, and happy to see our people out there. That's all I have for the chief.
Thank you very much. Deputy Graham.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Just quickly touching base on the administrative side. So on facilities base, we've secured some funding to do some costing and planning for renovation here at Saperton. We've been in the building since 2011 and grown a little bit since that time, so we're looking at doing a renovation here. For recruiting, since this last reporting period, we've held 9 information sessions promoting police officer and community safety officer career opportunities. This includes sessions that were specifically designed for TransLink staff. So we know within the TransLink community, be it BRTC or CMBC, there are people that may look to move on to policing careers, and they have that transit expertise already kind of built in. So we've held specific sessions for those folks. We also held a dedicated session focused on women in policing. In collaboration with our communication section, the recruiting unit supported the development of radio advertisements, which have been playing on local radio. You might also notice that we've now rolled out some advertisements on bus and various bus depots throughout the lower mainland. For training, the training unit hosted International Association Chiefs of Police course on frontline leadership for supervisors. course was held at the Regional Municipal Training Center in Delta and included participants from partner agencies in the Lower Mainland. I also just want to point out one thing from our people and culture side. So through TransLink, we've received award on the Canadian Workplace Wellbeing presented by Canadian Positive Psychological Association with workplace strategies for mental health and supports from Canadian Life. So this is an award that although TransLink receives, as well as its subsidiaries receives, this is done on a lot of work that we submit information on the Transit Police side, whether it be through our peer support, whether it be through our CISMs, whether it be through our PADS docs. So we contribute information to the enterprise, and this is the third year in a row that we've won this award. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And, you know, a very comprehensive report, just highlights coming out of that, but really want to recognize the work that's being done in divisions and organizationally moving a lot of initiatives forward, both internally, in partnership, and in community.
Questions, Jim?
Yeah, thank you for the report, and it is thorough. My question with respect to the internal sessions that were held potentially recruiting TransLink employees from other departments or divisions to the police service, have there been any applications received since those sessions were held?
There have. There's been numerous already come in.
Is that right? So there's demonstrated interest by virtue of the results of those sessions?
There is. We've even already hired one of them.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, that's good. So in the context of, I know that TransLink, my experience at TransLink, sometimes suffers in relation to some of the positions that are required for ongoing operations of the other departments, like SkyTrain, I know, and CMBC have problems attracting mechanics. Are any of the applicants in areas that would otherwise be sensitive from the point of view of just maintaining the operation from these other departments?
I would say the folks that are coming to us and that we've reached out to are people, it doesn't matter where they're coming from within TransLink, they're interested in a policing career. They're going to move on to a policing career. So we're not looking to kind of poach or steal from other aspects. It's just people that are going to be moving on regardless.
Anyway, okay.
And so we manage to keep them with their expertise, with their experience, which provides lots of knowledge and customer service within Transit Police.
All right, thank you.
I think you look at it, the umbrella, the approach is, you know, with TransLink is that there's many career opportunities within the organization, and we'd like to retain and keep people and provide those career opportunities.
I know when I was with TransLink, and this is, you know, a number of years ago now, but because mechanics were difficult to obtain externally, there tend to be poaching is maybe not the right word, but transfers occurring between CMBC and SkyTrain, or SkyTrain and CMBC, just to keep fully staffed. And it was kind of taking out of one pocket and not putting in the other without really gaining anything in the process. And that's why I'm raising the question, because I know the labor market, even now, especially in some areas, it's difficult to fill jobs. And I think the last meeting that we had, Chief Neary, you'd mentioned that we were stymied a few times by people kind of leading us along, thinking that they were interested in a job, and then we'd offer it, and they'd say, no, I've already got another job. So that's why I'm raising the question, because I know that in some respects we have a responsibility to the whole as well as to our own department. And I think the initiative's great, you know, from the point of view of this board, is doing the right thing. But at the same time, I think there needs to be a sensitivity to the overall interests of TransLink as an umbrella corporation as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. And as a senior executive team at TransLink, we've had those discussions, and there is a support within for opportunities for people should they wish to proceed in other career directions within the organization.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Marnie, Chief and team. Thank you for your comprehensive report. I have a comment and an unrelated question. Your comment, Chief, regarding the video from the Canadian Urban Transit Association on the front line. I had a chance to watch the video. It's a 45-minute video. I think the Transit Police came in around the 22-minute mark. if you get a chance, you can watch it. I thought it was actually a really good video, especially for the public who's not aware of the policing, and it really shows the empathy of the police force, which resonate for me. So thank you, and appreciate that report out. My question is related to mental health, and as we know that over the years, we've seen the phenomenal increase in the challenges in mental health, both in the health, in the policing, and all industries. And I appreciate that there's an area of mental health where you get one area where they need to be restrained, which is relatively small. But I believe there's a whole pocket of where mental health that requires intention of the transit police, but doesn't necessarily require restraint, but still requires a lot of time. I'm just interested here whether that you've seen the increase in your work, the increase of the time that's spent on just mental health, where you just have to calm the individual down or trying to connect them with social services or something. But interested to hear some highlight on that, because I've seen that in all the other industries, and it hasn't shown in here, or maybe I missed it in the report, but interested to hear some insight from the team.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll start, and I'll turn it to Deputy Fincham and Acting Inspector Michelle Hansen, should you wish to comment as well. At a very high level, what I would say, we've added a second mental health liaison officer, in part to support, you know, that those connections that are happening with individuals on the system, and being able to get them to the appropriate resources and connected within. And I'll turn it to Randy for further comments specific to the team.
Sure. The phenomenon you see in the Lower Mainland is that any one entity that's going to take on homelessness, addictions, and mental health wrapped up in the same umbrella, and our ability to support individuals in crisis is directly related to teams and community that can go and engage with them. So Michelle's team has 2 mental health liaison officers who are out there working with health service providers in the community. And then our ability to actually engage with these individuals in a home setting and care for them on a regular basis. So the ones that we traditionally run into are those who are traditionally unhoused or utilizing the transit system to get from A to B, and those are the individuals who we encounter on a regular basis. And a lot of these are regulars who we encounter and care for and provide treatment for, or refer to treatment programs. So I think what you'll see is, as you hear stuff in the news about that space opening up, and those who need treatment the most will be hopefully accounted for within that umbrella. And those are the most serious cases, and there's others that are going to fall through the cracks that we'll continue to engage with. So across the region, we call them mental health apprehensions for individuals in crisis. We have the ability to take to a position. Those numbers have actually stayed pretty consistent across the board. When you talk about time in our services and engagement by our members, what tends to fluctuate is the time spent in hospitals, as you have staff fluctuations at hospitals. You have crises in hospitals where you could be sitting there with 2 officers for 2 hours or 4 hours, depending on that span, which is a massive impact, when you're looking at hundreds, if not, for some agencies, thousands of apprehensions. So those variables will always change, but I think that's also an approach to what everybody's trying to do, is wrap up all 3, the addiction and the mental health side together. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, so you're saying it's kind of stable on that.
So we would look at our Section 28 apprehensions as a number. Ours are actually down a little bit from what they were before. And then there's other avenues that we have for other apprehensions where we're actually seeking out individuals that need care. We're actively going out in the community to look for them within the system as well. Individuals that health has decided need treatment and bring them back, rather than experiencing someone in crisis. It'd be a proactive way to bring people back to care. So our apprehension numbers have dipped recently, but not significantly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Carla? Thank you all for your reports, very comprehensive, really appreciate them. I did want to just ask a little bit more about the work on distracted driving, pedestrian safety, and drivers, and just, if you could say a little, I know it's come up before, but if you could say a little bit more about how we deploy, transit police, what our role is in terms of jurisdiction, what these campaigns are about.
So we work within our transportation service region with all of our initiatives. So we draw that nexus to transit with distracted driving, individuals driving in and around our transit centers. So you could look at it as a bus depot or a transit hub or a SkyTrain station. We'll focus our resources on those locations.
Okay.
So as people transition from their vehicle to SkyTrain or to the bus area, that's where we'll focus our efforts as far as the distracted driving.
Right.
So individuals on cell phones, while driving with due care and attention, not watching for pedestrians. Into the fall months, so we follow the ICBT calendar as well. There's a number of initiatives that throughout the province. So through the chiefs, we all collectively get together and decide what the priorities are throughout the region, and we'll work with our policing partners as well. So you'll see on the radio, you'll see now ads picked up in relation to impaired driving at the Christmas season, distracted driving into the fall. Michelle's team, Team Ed, and our community engagement team is out there working with back to school safety. So following those calendars of those current events that are possible, get that media attention. So not only is it Michelle, and I'll throw it to Michelle in a second here, not only is it our team Ed members out there, we have our community safety officers out there, our volunteers out there providing information, as well as our regular patrol members out there as well, engaging with the same activity. Some of our top producers actually for impaired driving and other initiatives are actually our patrol members. Our team Ed members are very engaged, but we have some patrol members that take it to heart with the impaired driving, distracted driving as well. Now, our mission is all to draw that nexus to transit with the work that we're doing.
In and around transit stations and stops, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think an important component to remember is bridges also. There's enforcement that happens in relation, with transit police that are linked to TransLink. And then, as part of our strategic plan and KPIs, working with our partners and law enforcement agencies, for example, the 2025 winter counterattack, we will be participating and in part assisting and organizing, and we will look to focus some of that enforcement in and around the transit system as well.
Yeah.
Michelle, anything we're missing?
Just to add to that, our team is both proactive as well as reactive. So complaints come to us from the enterprise, from citizens, whether it's sort of a street racing event outside of Surrey Central. So wherever we get the information that there's a problem building, our officers are quite proactive in going to those areas and dealing with those problems. So our traffic unit is built fantastic relationships with all our jurisdictional police, and in fact, often they're asked so many times to work projects within their working week, and they try very hard to accommodate everybody's requests.
Okay, thank you.
George?
And just for my question, I think also the other thing is bus lanes, enforcement, where you get into finding people that are probably in that for a variety of reasons, but could be impaired or whatever, which is great to see that kind of enforcement as well, because it's always dangerous and people kind of winging in and out. My question actually goes back to the marketing, and Stephen talked about this within the governance committee, and we even talked about it in the finance committee, the investment that's there. And good to see that it's happening. Obviously, the radio ads, heard those, the bus and the other outdoor advertising and so on that's underway. One of the things that we brought up at the time was trying to figure a way for you folks to come back with at least some sort of identification of the effectiveness of the campaign. Because if we're going to continue to make the investment. Marketing is more than just a one-off, so we have to do that and be able to demonstrate to TransLink that some of the things that we're doing actually has some positive effects. So we talked about the idea of, and this may come up in Carlos' People and Culture Committee, of the recruits coming in to try to identify how they found out about the opportunity with Metro Vancouver Transit Police. And I know it's going to be through a variety of things, but if we can identify in a way to quantify that about advertising, and so we continue this, because I think the biggest mistake is, like, if you're a retailer, you try to do one off. If your business does all this, then you say, well, this didn't work. Well, it's got to be done on a continuous basis. And financially, we've got, I think, the funds, the way that it's been managed to do this going forward, and certainly get the support from our friends at TransLink to provide the outdoor advertising where we can. But I do think at some point down the road, we need to identify the effectiveness and the number of recruits and so on, to come in, at least who have said, gee, I heard about that.
Yeah, so I'll just make a brief comment and turn it to our Director, Stephen Crosby, Strategic Services. But, you know, the marketing branding is twofold. There's a recruitment component that's in part with that, but it's also creating the brand awareness related to transit police. There are mechanisms in place that we are tracking that, and I'll let Stephen give an update in that regard.
Yeah, so the radio ad's been running for 3 weeks now. They'll be running for another week. The transit ads have just started to go up across the system, so we'll be transitioning more into the transit advertising for the next few months. That really allows us to kind of track, obviously, the efficacy of both forms of advertising. When recruits do apply, there is a portion of the form that does say, like, how did you hear about transit police? And you can check off multiple boxes, radio being one. When we targeted the stations we kind of selected, both here and in Alberta, really, we were trying to maximize the audience size. When we look into next year, we'll be doing more targeted radio placements at some of the smaller radio stations, also some of the sport specific networks. And so the first thing we saw when we launched the radio advertising is we saw a 130% increase in terms of traffic to the website, and specifically the careers page. But if you look at the application, obviously, it's not like you can turn that around overnight. It takes a little bit of time to actually complete that. So just anecdotally, like I've had a number of people say that they've kind of been hearing our advertising everywhere. Our youth liaison officer told me the other day, had someone phone him from Nanaimo saying, hey, I heard your radio advertisement, I'm actually kind of thinking about applying. So we are starting to get those inroads and people kind of reaching out, but over time we'll be definitely tracking, obviously, the increase in applications, but also the increase in quality applications, and seeing, like, what was the impact of radio, what was the impact of transit, and what was the impact of some other advertising opportunities we're looking at into 2026.
Yeah, we've got Acting Inspector Clint Hampton here, and lots of work going on with your team. Thanks for your leadership there, you know, including updating recruiting videos and, you know, other work happening for recruitment strategies that we talked about.
Sure.
Just a follow-up question on the issue of constraints around filling our budgeted positions. My understanding was that maybe it's twofold, but that one of our problems was just being able to train people who are qualified to become sworn members. The second, obviously, is attracting qualified people to be interested in becoming sworn members. So are they both about equally weighted in relation to our inability to actually have a full complement of staff, or is it one or the other?
So twofold. One is we need the increased capacity in order to hire. In terms of the candidates, we've seen an increase of the number of candidates and applications coming into the organization, and whether through the CSO program or the people that we're hiring as pre-recruits and or regular members for the Justice Institute, we've seen a strong quality of candidates, and I think that's reflective in the work that's being done by our officers that have been hired and in place.
So in relation to the, do we typically have enough candidates that are accepted in terms of the quality of background to fill the spots that are available to us through the Police Academy?
Yep, we do. We never shift the qualifications that we have for our candidates. We have a standard and we maintain that standard, and our candidates do meet that. So
how long, this may be too obtuse, but how long do people typically have to wait between being accepted relative to their qualifications and being brought into training at the Police Academy? Is there a large gap there or a relatively small gap?
Yeah, so I'll comment and I'll turn it if there's further comment from Deputy Graham. But it depends. It's a great answer. It depends, but it depends on timing. It depends on when, you know, the cycle is at the classes at the Justice Institute. As the board's aware, we are hiring people as pre-recruits. That puts them sort of in a better position, and it depends on capacity and how many numbers we're able to put in. So there's no sort of, you know, fixed time, but based on when the classes happen at the Justice Institute, that gives us kind of a time frame of knowing when we'll be hiring people.
Okay, because I could see the conundrum that people may be in where they have a job, and they want to, you know, maintain a cash flow in terms of maintaining a lifestyle, but at the same time, if they're questioning when they'll transition from whatever job they have to the police service. That is probably where that touchy-feely stuff comes in, so that they can transition out of their current job into the police service in a way that, represents good decorum, I guess.
And I think that speaks to the important work that a recruiting unit does in terms of each candidate and, meeting and very individualized, discussions with them and planning.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. Move on to the next item. So that is a board report on the update to the 2020 action plan for strengthening support to Indigenous peoples. That's you, Stephen?
Yes, we're just bringing up a quick slide deck. I was asked to provide an update on the 2020 report we developed.
Right.
You'll recall back then, I think many of the board members may remember, that there was a report on the Thunder Bay Police Services Board and their relationship to Indigenous peoples. So our senior policy and planning advisor did a very comprehensive analysis of that report and really did a bit of a gap analysis, saying like, what are we doing based on the recommendations already, and where could we look to improve? It was around the same time as the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report came out, as well as the Truth and Reconciliation Final report. So 3 very, very fulsome reports. And out of those reviews, we had 15 recommendations for transit police that came out of that. So we released that report. So it's posted publicly on our website back in early 2021. Since then, 14 of the 15 action items have either been completed, there is, or ongoing. There is one that is currently in progress. That's a review of the missing person policy. And just to quickly reference the missing person policy, transit police is never the police of jurisdiction for a missing person. What that policy is intended to capture is there may be points in time where a missing person comes to our attention, and we need to initiate the missing person file for a brief period of time before it can transfer over to the jurisdictional police agency. But as part of that policy review, we'll also be looking at reaching out to some community partners to receive their feedback as well. The other items you can see here, these are items that were implemented over the first couple of years after the report came out. One item I will point out is A2. It said, at the time, we didn't have the fair and impartial policing standards. Those are the new BC provincial policing standards that went into effect 2023, 2024. And once we actually looked at how fulsome and comprehensive they are, it actually ended up impacting a number of policies and standard operating procedures, and I'll talk to those a little bit further. There's also a number of action items that are ongoing, and there's 3 I want to highlight here. I'll see a lot of text on the screen, but the 3 bullets that are in green are the ones I'm going to talk about. So there was a recommendation, action item 10, to consider the Truth and Reconciliation Commission lens and aims within our strategic planning process. So we did that over, if you recall, over 2020-21 when we were developing the new strategic plan. However, we're now coming up to the new strategic planning process. So we need to be looking at that once again as an ongoing process that comes up every 5 years. There's also, consider having the board chair remind new appointees to the police board about the importance of completing the orientation program. And the orientation program, it's not static. I think the governance committee, is quite active in terms of reviewing it and making recommendations to improve it. And anytime a new board member comes on board, they're obviously going through the orientation process and then providing feedback to the board about what worked well. Over time, what would have made their experience transition more quickly, like obviously be able to kind of participate very fulsomely in the conversations. And there's just a lot happening at Transit Police. You receive a lot of different reports and materials, so trying to get police board members up to speed as quickly as possible. And lastly, the police board is to continually identify areas of truth and reconciliation and cultural awareness training. And I'll just point out, we're just about to do land acknowledgement training. So that's an ongoing process. And that's actually a standing item on the governance committee, is constantly talking about those training opportunities at every single meeting. So these are all ongoing, and these will roll into the new strategic plan that will be coming out in 2027 that we'll be working on developing next year. Now, there were a few items the last time I brought this action plan matrix to the board's attention in 2023 that were outstanding. The ones that have been completed since then are we hadn't yet transitioned back into doing community meetings. That was simply because of COVID. We had done that one community meeting at Mosaic in Vancouver in 2019, then COVID hit, and we had to kind of obviously close that down for a period of time. Everything migrated online. And then once we actually started meeting in person again, we went out and held our first community meeting at the SFU campus in Surrey. And then last year we did, this year we did the meeting in April at the SFU campus in Vancouver. So we're doing one community meeting a year. Next year we'll be very, very busy in terms of the strategic planning process, so we'll likely be doing one meeting again, but obviously looking for additional opportunities as much as possible moving forward. We also didn't have an Indigenous Police Board member appointed to our board, and so that obviously now we have Christina, who was appointed, the last year and a half, and obviously that's ongoing. Like, when we look at the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to want to look at having that Indigenous representation on our board on an ongoing basis. But that's something we've gone to police services about numerous times. Marnie, you were quite active about that in terms of asking if we could get an Indigenous representative on our board. And this just gives an idea of some of the policies and SOPs that have been updated as a result of the fair and impartial policing standards. So initially we thought it would just be one kind of policy related to fair and impartial policing, but you can see here there's a number of policies. There's also a number of SOPs, and that work is just ongoing based on those standards that came out in 2023 and 2024. So when you kind of think about what we need to look at moving forward, I think that action matrix really kind of led a lot of the initiatives between kind of 2020, kind of 2022, most of the actions were completed. When we look into the new strategic planning process and developing the new strategic planning framework, we don't want our Indigenous, our reconciliation plan or Indigenous action plan to be separate from the strat plan. We want them to be, hand in hand with one another. So we need to be looking at what are the other reports that have come out in the last few years. We need to be looking at what kind of Indigenous action plans are embedded within other police agencies, strat plans across the country, as well as, specifically to British Columbia and Metro Vancouver, and really starting to identify some areas such as this. These are often the items that we report on in the police board and governance meetings, where the education that we're doing, transit safety presentations tailored to Indigenous communities, Indigenous students, the outreach we're doing, including the Blue Eagle Community Cadet Program, the training that's provided on an ongoing basis, including the land acknowledgement training that we're going to be doing, and then the partnerships that's being developed, largely through the work of our Indigenous Liaison Officer, but also working with the Indigenous Relations team at TransLink. So really what we're looking for is, as part of the new strat plan, embedding a separate matrix. It would likely probably be based on categories similar to that, really kind of looking at what are the more recent lessons learned, and then when you receive the strat plan report moving forward, starting in 2027, having that separate matrix really breaks out the Indigenous actions. So I'll turn it over to the group and see if anyone has any questions.
Sure.
Thank you. Good report. The fact that this matrix was developed in 2020 suggests that there's probably been additional studies undertaken, additional learning from experiences over the course of the last 5 years that probably should be embedded in a new and improved version of the matrix. And I'm sort of single out Christina here because your day job, you're kind of working in this pretty regularly. It seems to me that anything that becomes available, you probably become aware of through your day job. And I'd encourage Christina, sort of the connection that you have through your day job to help develop an expanded or modified or new and improved version of the matrix so that we're staying up to date and doing everything that's reasonable within the resources that we have to create an environment where reconciliation remains an important purpose of the transit police as well. So but I'm happy that the matrix was developed. I'm happy that we've done as much as we've done on it and are working on the last recommendation, the missing persons policy, because I see that as being important. Just as an aside, I was reading last night online about a case that I think it was in Ottawa. I don't remember specifically, but it was an Indigenous woman who was incarcerated for the last 30 years. And she had, while she was in jail, taken hostage a couple of jail guards in an environment where she was receiving some treatment, but she was using in the room there was a set of tweezers that she kind of employed as a weapon to sort of cause the guards to be trapped in that room. And it went to court, and the judge that was responsible for the case received presentations from both the prosecution as well as the defense. And the defense was saying, you know, given the history of this woman in relation to her experiences in incarceration, you know, being held in jail, they were asking that it be, I forget what the term was, but basically dismiss the charges because of the experiences she'd had. And the prosecution was saying, well, this is serious when you hold hostage jail guards, that's a pretty serious crime. And the judge leaned in favor of the defense attorney's arguments because of the experiences that this Indigenous woman had while she was incarcerated for 30 years. And I thought it was an important case from the perspective of demonstrating, first of all, the judge noted the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the judicial system generally. And secondly, the judge recognized that notwithstanding the fact that they're incarcerated, I guess, for cause, that the means and the process of incarceration can vary from person to person. And in this circumstance, because of the, I guess, the severity of some of the experiences that this lady had in jail, the judge leaned in favor of the defense's argument that it should be more toward dismissing the charges as opposed to a 3-year, I think it was a 3-year sentence that would have otherwise been applied to the level of crime that had been committed. But I think it was an important case that reminded me of the importance of how we undertake our responsibilities as a police service in the context of the experiences that Indigenous people often, to which they're exposed. And it reminded me that even though sometimes this issue of sort of ignore the person and just address the crime is kind of the sermon that's preached, it isn't always necessarily as clean cut as that. And judges are exposed to circumstances where they have to take into account the totality of a person's experience in the context of issuing a judgment. And so I'm saying that more in the context of us recognizing the importance of the work that we do in the context of reconciliation and balancing all the various issues and needs of the community in the context of delivering a strategic plan that actually is sensitive to the various groups that we're policing in the community, including Indigenous peoples. So I guess in short, though, I think having Christina's expertise available to us in relation to sort of fleshing out anything that should be changed or added to or augmented within the current matrix related to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, I think is going to be a very important part of that planning process.
Great. Any other questions for Stephen? Christina?
I do, I have a couple questions as well as a couple comments. Just going through the document, and I'm on page 46 of our material, Appendix A. I appreciate the fulsome report. And I noticed that there are some items here that are still under review. But looking at it appears a lot of the items that have been completed are not Indigenous. There's a lot of conflation between other underrepresented groups, marginalized groups, racialized groups, and I think that conflating the reconciliation efforts, and I think that we should take another look at, truthfully looking at what the reconciliation specific efforts have been and where we need to go. Looking at the training courses
that have been undertaking. Staff have taken, cultural coding and awareness, to LGBTQ plus and trauma-informed practice. And that's under action item 8.3. Where's the specific Indigenous cultural competency, training that has been provided? This is a lot, and I'm not sure that that's accurate. Further, if we look more on page 8, looking at 8.4, I'm wondering about the conversation with appropriate partners on drafting of policies. It looks like in red here, there's been a contemplation of standard operating procedures, policies, as well as LGBTQ. I don't see here what specific Indigenous consultation is undertaken. Who from the host nation has been consulted?
Yeah, so I think that the recommendations, they were specifically arising from the Thunder Bay Police Services report, and some of them were very, very specific to the outreach and consultation with Indigenous communities, but then some of them were much broader, and as you allude to, right, it was more capturing all marginalized communities. So the example I'll provide is the Gender-Based Analysis Plus course that was recommended as part of the Thunder Bay Police Board review. So all of our senior leaders, I think we had a little over 100 people at the sergeant, staff sergeant, manager rank, undertook that course back in 2022 and then a little bit into 2023. When I spoke to training, they said, like, it was a good course. There's actually better courses out there today. There's also more specific courses related to reconciliation. And I think about the training that was developed last year in terms of the experiential training. So at that point in time, the specific recommendation of the State Police Services report, like we undertook that, but then recognizing that just continuing to take that training, there's actually a lot of better training and a lot of better ways to provide orientation and support those reconciliation efforts today. And a lot of it just comes down to when you see here like references to the LGBTQ2S+ community, those are just those broad-based recommendations within the Thunder Bay Police Services report and the ongoing actions related to that. But I think when we look at the new matrix specific to Indigenous reconciliation, it needs to be very, very focused and specific, I think, which is what you're talking about. Not quite as broad as what we were capturing in this earlier report.
Right, and I think we have to be careful with our language as well, because at the beginning of the presentation, it was prefaced on, yes, there was consideration of the Thunder Bay Police Services report, but there was also mention of consideration of the NRC report, the Truth and Reconciliation report, and I'm not seeing that.
Yeah, so if I were to pull up the report on our website, the 15 recommendations are all based on the Thunder Bay Police Services review, but there was also like a 40-page appendice that was in there talking about different efforts of the community engagement team and work we want to undertake there related to the other reports, but it wasn't necessarily tied to the 15 recommendations. So I think a lot of that, I think it needs to be restructured. It needs to be restructured as part of the new strat plan, and less so with the Thunder Bay Police Services review, which is what this was the first part of the recommendations was largely focused on. Moving forward, we need to focus more on the latter and recommendations based on those.
I think we should do an addendum to this report to identify the limitations, because just marking this as, I think it gives the impression of, further progress that has been actually achieved. I have the same comment about item 8.5 on page 49 in terms of the recruitment services, seeing as an example the recruitment efforts, Transit Police's attendance at the BC Muslim Sports Women's Soccer Tournament. That's not reconciliation. The Passionate for Youth Worldwide Soccer Tournament for the African Canadian Club, that's not relevant. And if our organization is unable to understand how that's not relevant and how reconciliation is separate and distinct from ED&I initiatives, then I think we're further behind than we think that we are.
Yeah, I think one of the conversations we've had about this report before, like, I think it put us on the leading edge at the time, but I think continuing to reflect back on this specific matrix 5 or 6 years later, I think we're not progressing. I think we need to develop a new matrix, and we can't keep looking back on this one. This is a point in time. We need to move past this, and particularly as part of the new strategic planning process.
And also, I would like to just mention how I'm personally mentioned in this report. I think I'm looking at item 89 at page 51. And I'm happy to be here on that. But I don't recall anything specific on the CADPRO application encouraging, specifically asking for Indigenous board applicants, or if there was any outreach made to Indigenous legal professionals or Indigenous community members in order to recruit a board member. I feel like I came here sort of a bit, you know, I don't think by accident, but, you know, there wasn't a targeted strategy to recruit an Indigenous board member. And if that is one of the things that we've identified as something we want to do, then I'm not comfortable, you know, being, you know, evidence of successful policy that I'm not aware that that policy actually exists. What recruitment strategies have we actually engaged in? Because I'm not aware of any. And then finally, I was actually going to raise this today as well in response to this report about what I see as a lack of positive momentum and a concrete strategy or effort in actually recruiting Indigenous officers. As we continue to have non-Indigenous people within the Indigenous liaison position, I think it undermines our entire reconciliation effort. I think it undermines the credibility of our efforts on this matter. What do you want to say?
Just on the point of recruitment to the board, before you joined us, Christina, it was for the past several years, and Marnie, as our chair, has been working with Gabbro, and that was a priority, was Indigenous representation on our board, along with a skills matrix to figure out where we needed some support. So, for example, even Bill, with his financial background, you know, comes in to fill that slot. You being out of the legal side and the broad-based approach. I think the biggest single problem that we have with Gabbro is that it's dysfunctional as it relates to at least this particular board. We try to bring in qualified individuals. And I'm saying this in a public setting because we've encouraged, as we've said even in our community meetings, people need to apply. And we, as an organization, need to identify where the skill gaps or the gaps are in the skill base, in the matrix that we have on our board. So whether it's professional background, academic, whatever it may be, operationally inclined, it seems to be tone deaf in Capital. And we're delighted that, you know, your appointment, because I think for us, it was them listening to us saying we need that representation. And that was great. So don't feel like you got here by accident. I clearly know it's Marnie's work through Gabbro, but we're now down a couple of members. We'll be down 3 members short. And, you know, as much as we try to recruit, what's the point of trying to recruit anybody to Gabbro? From my point of view, I've done it. I've been embarrassed by it. Because you put people through a process, and I feel sorry for Marnie as our chair. You know, time and effort spent, and nothing comes of it. And the people that we would like to come to our board because of their skill base don't. And I don't know what we can do more on this. I think we should have more than yourself, for example, and different community members that we represent, both in terms of our own board, but obviously clearly within our membership and so on. But I just wanted to speak to the governance side. We have actively, in my time on this board, worked very closely with all of us trying to get people to apply through Cabro. But when it goes into a black hole and nobody hears anything, and then you're just standing there with people that maybe you suggested that would be good, and then you go back to them and say, well, whatever happened? I never heard. And you go, why do it next time? Why bother?
Right, and we do also have to work with TSML on this as well, and so we have put forward our concerns again formally about the process up through police. It actually goes through police services. So, we are provincially appointed, and we do not have say on who gets appointed, but we would like you to play an active role in the process. So we are working through that continually.
One last comment if I can make just about that too, is that I think, you know, good board governance on anybody, whether it's private companies, situations, public sector organizations, and the government and so on, we should be able to influence the makeup of our board, because we're the ones that know what we're missing, where the gaps are. And, you know, this TSML thing is ridiculous too, but that's another story, that they can influence as much as they do.
They can.
You know, I think it's really important for us to continue through Marnie's chair to try to drive that process to make sure it's clear what we need. Because just getting people appointed to a board because they have had some application go into Cabro, and it's whether it's the BCA Marketing Board or, oh gee, Metro Vancouver Transit Police, there's a spot there, is wrong, in my opinion. I think, again, we just need to be able to ensure that we have good quality board members who are here for a reason, who are going to add value every single day, and that's why I'm disappointed for someone like Murray, who will be having his last meeting today, that we end up by not having someone like Murray at least on during this transition time with the history and so on. And we go through this process again of not really having a say in where things are going to be going. So I do want you to know that you're respected. We're delighted that you're here. But it was through, I think, our board actively seeking representation in that area. But then, as Marnie said, you have to let them do whatever it is they do in Victoria. And if they ever got out to a board meeting, maybe that would help. I mean, instead of sitting in front of a computer or being over in Victoria with Cabro.
But there's things that our board could actually do. We could write an invitation letter to chief and council from the location to ask them to encouraging their members to fill out an application. We could hold an info session meeting with community members. We could hire a Indigenous recruiting company like Pathways to encourage. We could build relationships with Indigenous and Indigenous communities, and we're not doing that.
Correct.
I just want to make a point as well, that not defending Cabro or the province, but just highlighting the fact that Cabro is a step in the process, not the end result.
Correct.
And I think the problem that Cabro faces, the people that are within Cabro, is that they make recommendations to the minister,
Yes.
who then decides whether to receive the recommendation or appoint someone else. And I'm not sure what the percentages are in terms of recommendations versus appointments, but a lot of it has to do with maybe the word politics isn't the right word, but the leanings that the minister may have about the suitability of a candidate from a broader perspective than just expertise in relation to the board to which the appointment is being made. And I think that's, and I agree with Christina that taking some actions as a board would be helpful, you know, to encourage people to apply from Indigenous communities. But at the same time, I also think there should probably be some proactive action taken with respect to the minister, who ultimately decides on these appointments, the importance of Indigenous representation with the right skill set. So building on what George just a comment about. So and I think that's almost equally as important as finding people, is to encourage the minister to appoint Indigenous representation when it's available, when they are available. So I realize that that's, it feels like kind of a minor step in the process, but ultimately it's maybe the biggest hurdle in the whole process, in my opinion. So Cabro has good intentions, I believe, based on my conversations with Katie Charlton as when she attends the BCAPB board meetings. They're doing the best they can in relation to making recommendations. The question of whether those recommendations are received and approved is a second level that's equally as important as Cabro trying to figure out who's maybe the best choice in the moment.
Yeah, and, yeah, we can table this for future, but, you know, maybe we get police services and Cabro to come and meet with us, and, you know, we can explain our concerns, right, about it, about the entire process, so
But
we'll table that piece for now, right?
on the record, even as a letter, in my opinion, wouldn't be a bad idea to the minister, because it's, and I realize we're one board of
Yeah, and
13.
we're looking
Yeah.
across all boards, right? So I think we need, you know, to understand that as well, and I get the structure, but we could invite them to
I
actually
agree.
consult with us on what we've seen in this process, right? Yeah.
And I also recognize that people like Katie Charlton, who are involved in the process, have to be careful that they're faithful to the structure within which they operate as well. So it may be frustrating to listen to, but at the same time, they can't throw people under the bus either, so.
So,
Yeah, do you want to just
yeah,
sum up on the?
absolutely.
on
So,
what Christina brought
you know,
up?
really appreciate sort of the comments and the support, you know, even around recruitment Indigenous people. There are a couple things I do want to clarify, though, and that is, number one, the purpose of this report. And the purpose was to report back on the 2020 action plan matrix. And this report is specific to that. In time, there's been reviews of Truth and Reconciliation, the MMIWG, so National Inquiry Missing and Murdered Women and Girls. So that work has happened, but this was specific to the work on this review. And just looking through some of kind of the items that have been highlighted, if we go to, and I think the other piece is, it's a fair comment around completed. This work is never completed, and I think this is the importance why we will embed it in our upcoming, you know, strategic plan. So it forms all of our work going forward. But of the areas that were flagged, I believe A5 was one of the action items, and it was brought forward just around some of the events we're involved in, Muslim sport. But the actual action item indicates its advancement of underrepresented groups and identity measures. So that particular one wasn't just Indigenous focus, and that's why there was additional categorizations of some of the progressive work that's being done organizationally. The other area flagged related to training, and I think it was brought up under another number, but if you go to A15, it actually highlights the experiential training that was done in 2024. I'm really proud of the work our training unit did. A number of the board members actually attended that training, so we have advanced in that area, and I thought it would be important to highlight and remind the board of that work that's occurred.
All right, any other questions, Christina, anything? Obviously, this is ongoing that we'll bring up through strat planning next year, which is where we'll develop the new matrix and so we track that forward. Anything?
I just had one other comment, and it relates to the Thunder Bay Police Service, which, you know, was under review from 2018 to 2020 that generated the report that was one of the significant bases of this matrix. But since then, I've kind of keeping an eye on what's going on in Thunder Bay, and since then there's been at least one, if not two, reviews undertaken about just the balance and efficacy of the Thunder Bay Police Service. And it has kind of been, in my opinion, a hot button in terms of Canadian approach to dealing with Indigenous peoples. And it was so bad in Thunder Bay, and correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, Stephen, but at one point in time, the entire board was dismissed. And for a period of time, there was a commissioner put in place in lieu of the board to oversee the Thunder Bay Police Service, and then a new board was appointed. But even after the new board was appointed, there were still concerns about treatment of Indigenous peoples in Thunder Bay. And I think there actually have been I'm not sure if there are recommendations, but certainly a report that noted the shortcomings that I think would be helpful in relation to reviewing our action plan. And, you know, Christina, no doubt you're aware of these things as well, but it's, and Thunder Bay isn't the only area in Canada. I mean, every area in Canada is attempting to play their role, whatever it is, whether it's police services or other public entity services or even private sector services that are all involved in the process of reconciliation. But I think doing a fairly thorough, I don't know, market review may be the wrong word, but market review of what's happening more broadly in Canada around reconciliation probably would be a good information gathering exercise to ensure that our new strategic plan is fulsome around reconciliation.
Yeah, I think I'll just add, I think your comments, I think, are really, really important. I think bringing you on the board, Christina, I think there's definitely no expectation that we're going to look at this matrix and you're going to be like, yeah, this is great. This is exactly where we want to be. Everything here is exactly what I wanted to see. So having you identify areas like recruiting of Indigenous people and saying, like, you know, what's reflected in this plan, whether or not it encapsulates everything we're doing is insufficient and you need to see more. It's exactly why you're on the board, is to ask those questions. But this matrix doesn't need to be improved accordingly. There needs to be a new matrix developed for our strat plan. It needs to address those concerns that you've raised today.
Can I add one quick last comment? It's quick. To Stephen's point too, and this goes back to you, Christina, I see you as a colleague on this board with a legal background. I don't, just because you happen to be Indigenous background, that's great, but we needed somebody with a legal background, and that's where at least our friends at Police Services in Cavro were listening in that regard. The same as we go forward, I think, around what else we need in the future.
Mm-hmm.
We do need further support to build, for example, on the financial side to give us some strength there in our organization. But that was really a key piece for me anyway, of that you bring forward questions that a lot of us don't have from that professional side that you have, and working closely with Oscar and others around some of the policy things that you see a little bit differently than maybe lay people. Okay? Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the report from the Finance Committee.
Great. Thank you, Marnie. George, thank you for your plug-in about the importance of financial. Much appreciated. As you know, the members of the committee includes Murphy and Stuart Bannon and our ex-official member, Marnie. On the consent agenda, there's about 4 items I just want to quickly highlight. First of all, I just want to say that in the Finance Committee, we certainly want to thank Director Dinwiddie, sincere thanks for him for his many years of dedication and service in the Finance Committee. His certain deep knowledge of the TransLink Police consistently brought thoughtful and strategic questions to our discussions that strengthen the committee's work and helping us stay focused in protecting the public interest. So on behalf of the Finance Committee, thank you, Murray. It has been a pleasure and happy to be a member in the Finance Committee.
Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome. On the Q3 financial operating results, that is on our consent agenda 1.2D. There's a couple items I do want to highlight for the group here today. The financial package was discussed in detail in the Finance Committee. The key items impacting the variance, the labor component, vehicle training and consulting and other services. As of September 30th, 2025, these service costs were $40.6 million versus the year-to-date budget of $44.1 million. A favorable variance of $3.4 million. Overall, it's consistent with their previous reports on the favorable variance, which is due to the salary and the timing of the savings from vacant positions and due receipts from the JIBC. Notwithstanding the position vacancies, the chief has assured us that the staffing levels are maintained and the public safety is not compromised. Transit Police is forecasting a positive variance for the balance of the year in the neighborhood of $3.6 million for year end. Back on October 29th, there was a 2026 budget workshop with Translate. Chief Mayor, Director Dinwiddie, and Director Mann attended the Transit Budget Workshop, and overall, the Transit Police 2026 budget submission was well received. 2 items on outstanding agenda in the Finance Committee is the risk register. We continue to oversee the key risks of funding, records management, and security and confidential of information and assets. And the other standing item is that Deputy Graham continues to provide with additional detail on the squad's overtime, as well as sworn civilian and CSO personnel strength, authorized by actual and deployable figures. That concludes my report.
Questions for Bill? All right,
Thank
excellent.
you.
George, governance.
Just Bill, thank you, Murray, for your support over the years in the Governance Community Engagement Committee. You have the minutes that have been circulated. We've already talked about a number of things here related to reconciliation. The chief did a full report on that. Community engagement, as Stephen has just identified. The other thing, this being a public, open part, we don't have to wait to be into the community to have public participation. As you pointed out, there's delegations. Anybody that wishes to come to our board is welcome to do so, so we continue to encourage those to do that. The strategic priorities piece that we talked about with the board, we encourage you, Marty, to reschedule that because we obviously couldn't continue, didn't have that. It came up in our committee. We really need that, I think, to set up early in the new year to be able to go back on the priorities side. Also, from the public side, onboarding, I want everybody to know that we continue to look at ways and means of improving the onboarding of new board members. So those that are part of the board here have any ideas of what new things we should be considering. We will have 3 new board members. We'd like to hear about that. We've got some ideas that include a meeting with the individuals of the committees themselves when they come in, one-on-one, having a helpful conversation or whatever it is. Obviously, working with you, Marty, as chair, on that basis. And then we did have a vote with regards, again, in public session, we assess ourselves as a board every year, and we do our board assessment. We did have a vote, and Christina, you were volunteered to do the board. Coming in close second, Carla. Lost up by 1.
Not even on the committee, but, you know.
But we will do that, so everybody around here from the board will be getting an assessment, and that'll be done through our board manager, Karen, and that'll be coming out in the not-too-distant future. And Murray would like to do an exit interview with regards to your thoughts. I think it's really important. Every time a board member leaves, we did this with Adam Palmer and Maureen prior to this, you just sit down and have a brief conversation. What's working well? What can we do better? And we'll set aside 3 hours for you, Murray. But we do appreciate it. Well, that's the first half of the afternoon session. But we do try to improve. I think it's really important that our senior leadership team, the public know that we try to be better board members through learnings and through identifying best practices. And that can only happen by listening. And we try to listen to experienced individuals, but we encourage others to be able to provide input. We want to get better. So that's it.
All right. Great. Any questions for George? All right. So last item on the agenda is to do a big thank you to Murray. This is his last board meeting. He has been on the board for 8 years, and prior to that, he was on the TransLink board. So he has chaired our finance committee. He's been active members on finance and governance. Always steps up for ad hoc committees, election, e-com, and you see him at events all the time. He's always there representing us and doing a great job. He's also been our rep on BCAPB for a number of years as well. So great dedication. We thank you for that. You have represented us very well. So thank you and enjoy retirement.
Murray, thank you so much for everything you've done, your dedication. on behalf of Transit Police, I mean, 8 years, just such a significant service to the community, to our board, and to Transit Police. You've really grown us as an organization. Personally, I've really valued your insights, direction, and, you know, I leave here proud knowing you've really, you know, you look at our 20th anniversary and, you know, you've been almost half. So thank you again for everything you've done.
Oh, thank you.
And,
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been,
Can we do one in front of the other?
signal.
Good on.
A little more.
Thank you. I'd like to say, that 8 years has gone by very quickly. Doesn't feel like 8 years, but it's been a real privilege to serve with the board as it's currently structured, as well as previous members that have served on the board. And feel like I've given a little, but I've learned a lot. And I leave here a better person than I came. I'll put it that way. So thank you for sharing your experience, your knowledge, your wisdom with the board and de facto with me over the course of the last 8 years. And I'll value for the rest of my life the time I've served on this board. So thanks again.
Thank you. All right, so that brings this section to a close. Let's take a really quick break, like 5 minutes, because we